House to Home, brought to you by Remax Diamond Realty.
Welcome back, everybody. House to Home is the segment we are talking about right now. The changing face of property tax on Guam, and Liz Duenas is gracious, as always, to join us here. And Liz, we appreciate your insight. And we bring into the Harmon studio, once again, we welcome back Kim Anderson from Security Title. So Kim, welcome back. How's the day?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so ladies, I want to get up to speed on everything that's been going on with property taxes on the island, because as we know, we've been reporting here on KUAM that the evaluation, the assessment of properties themselves, the regulatory environment is decades old now and very, very overdue. So what's the latest?
Well, there's supposed to be a triennial assessment for property taxes, and it hasn't been done in a while. I mean, the last one, I believe, was done in 1993. So it's an ongoing thing, and I think they've got that completed. However, the problems we're having is when a person is buying and selling property, they'd have to calculate what is their property taxes, what is due, who pays what when you purchase a property. Because normally during the course of the year, if you buy it in the middle of the year, you prorate who pays what. And so now we haven't gotten those figures. And Kim and the escrow company right now, they're handling sales, and they normally handle the prorations and the credits, debits and credits on the taxes. So it'd be great, you know, we're having her here to talk about how are they handling that right now.
Well, that's a perfect segue, because Kim, what does this mean going forward for, you know, people like yourselves or property owners, and do we even know at this point?
Well, we don't know what the new assessment amount is. If you go up to find out how much it's going to cost you to pay your taxes, the 2014 taxes, which are due and payable in 2015, they don't have numbers for you quite yet. They're working frantically on it. And I mean, it's a big island. There's a lot of properties. However, the way that we're handling it from an escrow standpoint, and I called the person who's doing the valuation and I said, is there a rule of thumb you can give us? Can you give us 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%? What do you think? And she said, the properties are so diverse that we can't give you a rule of thumb on it. It is what it is. So what we're doing as an escrow company, because the 2014 taxes have not been, the tax amount has not been put out, we're taking what your 2013 tax amount was, we're adding 30% to it, and we're holding it in escrow until the tax bills become due and payable. Then we'll have the money when the tax is assessed to pay the tax and then return the balance to the seller whose money it is.
Okay, now just as someone who is very, very frugal with my own expenses, that 30% concerns me. So is that an arbitrary number, or are you? We
picked it out of the air.
Okay.
Because
is it being in any way very conservative or very liberal? Or?
I think it's very liberal. I think it's very generous, okay. And I think just about, and that was our intent. Our intent was not to have to knock on people's door and say, come back in and pay more taxes.
Right.
Our intent was to have enough. I'm going to be surprised if it's 35 or 40%, but we figured 30% was, we picked it out of the air.
Better to overestimate than underestimate.
We hope we're overestimating.
Yeah. And because tax time is coming up, could property owners here realistically be hit with a potentially massive bill, or, you know, are there any considerations being made for, you know, with this lack of knowing?
Well, there is that lack of knowing we haven't really reserved for it. During the year, like a bank, when you have a mortgage, a bank will collect 1/12 of the annual tax, and the bank will pay that on your behalf. In this case, we don't know what the number is. So, you know, interestingly enough, I've heard from I was in Saipan in 95, but the people who were on Guam in 93, 94, 95 said the same exact thing happened then. They assessed the values as of 1993. They started to assess them in 94, so charged the 94 the new tax, and there was so much confusion about people had already assessed it, the year was already done, that they actually started the assessment for 1995. And so here we are 20 years later. You know, I don't know what the government is going to do. I know they're working on it, and I know that they're aware of what's going on. But, you know, they have other fiscal responsibilities too, that they may be counting on the income.
Okay.
But if you look in general at our taxes, our property taxes, I mean, we've got one of the best property tax rates in comparison to stateside, you know, because
Extremely low.
extremely low in comparison. So even if you tacked on a percentage, I still think it's still far reasonable in comparison to the taxes you would pay stateside. I was talking to someone the other day, and they were saying that their tax for the year was $18,000 for their property, and I know, you know, for here we've got great tax rates that we enjoy. So I think it's time for them to do that assessment. We're just curious to see how much more has that grown.
And if people have questions, Kim, and certainly there are legions of people who will, where can they go for more information, or how can they contact you?
Well, if they want to know what's going on with the government taxation, I'm sure we'll all be hearing something soon from the government, what they choose to do. Our customers, we try and keep them up to speed on what's going on with the taxation, but right now we don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to give a free plug to my employer right here, and everybody make sure you keep watching KWM News, because we're going to stay